I'm Christophe de Jager. I'm the programmer of BozarLab. It's a department in the Center for Fine Arts that focuses on projects on the crossing borders of art, science and technology. In our world we are confronted with main challenges such as the COVID crisis, but also climate change and other difficult economic and ecological challenges. And I think in order to find solutions for these problems or these challenges, we have to bring people together. Individuals alone cannot provide solutions. So what we do with BozarLab is we bring together artists, scientists, researchers and industrialists in a search for new ideas that can repair our present or repair the future. We are mainly supported by European programs such as Studiotopia, which is a residency program for scientists in the studio of artists. Another project is STARTS. STARTS stands for Science, Technology and Arts, and it guides artists towards digital industries, because the program believes that the creativity and criticality of artists leads to innovation and social progress in the end. I would like to give the floor to Emma, my colleague.
So we will guide you virtually today through the exhibition STARTS Prize 2020, Speculating on the Future Through Arts and Science. The STARTS Prize every year awards the best collaborations between artists, scientists, designers and the industry. There are two grand prizes, the Innovative Collaboration Prize and the Artistic Exploration Prize. The STARTS Prize leads to a travelling exhibition from the Ars Electronica Festival to BOZAR in Brussels, and this year we have selected 5 main topics that the projects relate to: programmability of life, human-machine interaction, digital activism, circular economies, and the future of health and well-being. So let us guide you through this exhibition. So we're very glad to have with us today for this virtual guided tour Olga Silva, who is the winner of the STARTS Prize 2020. So Olga, can you tell us a bit more about your work, and namely the research centers you've been working with in France and internationally?
Eden is a new kind of network based on the possibility of plants to communicate together or to other spaces. We've worked on since about 10 years, and the goal of this project is to help plants to survive and to keep the biodiversity in our contemporary world more and more destroyed by human activity. We presented here a little documentation of the first step of the project. We also have a live installation with plants coming from Amazonia forest, kind of plants which suffered a lot from forest fire last year, and we are now helping them to survive and to reestablish themselves. And the plants we have here in the museum are in communication with plants which are still in Amazonia struggling to survive. Also, we when traveling, we was confronted to a very strong ancient future knowledge coming from native populations of New Zealand, Brazil, Australia, and we felt like pity. This knowledge is about to be forget in Europe. So during the pandemic, we started in Paris a new stage of the project by bringing back the native plants from the area to the Parisian gardens. And since we knew we will come in Brussels, we also made a kind of virtual simulation of this kind of project for Brussels with the plants we could maybe one day bring in the gardens here.
This is a work of art of Pei Ying-lin. She's a Taiwanese speculative designer and artist, and she has produced an imagination of the cookbook of the future in 2068. And it's a cookbook that uses viruses to space up the meals. Now, when you eat viruses are dead materials, but they can reproduce by going into the cells of people. So when you eat, for example, chicken with viruses, the viruses come loose and get into the cells of our mouth. And this gives some sort of certain flavor to the food. Also, the viruses into the cells, they start to reproduce and they start to release RNA, which also has a specific taste. So I think it's an interesting project on how to imagine a new life or new equilibrium between viruses and humanities in the future. And what's most interesting, the work has been produced before the COVID crisis. Hello, Irakli, can you tell me something about your work?
This project, titled Voicing Borders, addresses the situation in Georgia, where since 2008, 20% of the country is occupied by Russia. This occupation is enforced with a razor wire fence that you see behind you. And this fence is gradually built through the country as a wall to cut off the occupied land from the rest. This line cuts through 4 different regions, separating villages, cutting communities in half. The fence itself hides from the rest of the world what is happening behind it, what is happening inside the occupied land, where no international organization is allowed to monitor the happenings. In this land, the villages of the local population who were forced out during the war are now being completely destroyed, and not even the rubble and the ruins are left because everything is cleared. The ground is completely wiped of any traces of the local population. This methodic process repeats itself in many villages, and this interactive installation, the projection installation, is dedicated to documenting this process, which is going on for over a decade now. In this installation, by casting your shadow on the projection of the villages, you can trace back the structures that are already gone. In chronological order of images, you can see how the process of destruction methodically repeats itself from village to village. But by standing in the projection and casting a shadow, you can trace back the structures which are already gone.
So, as I said, one of the topics of the exhibition is circular economies, where we can see artists, designers, architects working on the topic of making a world more sustainable. And here we have an example of this circular economies topic that we've chosen for the exhibition. So on this table we have work by 2 Greek architects working at TU Delft in the Netherlands. They have worked on the idea of being able to recycle glass that is not usually recycled, because usually industries recycle foods or drinking containers made of glass. So the idea here is to use any kind of glass to be able to construct, namely glass bricks that you can see here, and the idea of really being able to recycle as much glass as possible and to use it as architectural material.
So the big frightening panel, dark frightening panel you see here is Anatomy of an AI System created by Vladan Joler and Kate Crawford. And it shows the birth, the life and the death of an Amazon unit. So this is a technological device that communicates intellectually with us, but that also takes our data. Now this system is really exploiting our world. And together with crypto-forensic people, both artists went to explore where the system comes from and where it in fact ends up. So you see here on the panel the geological materials that are necessary to build these technological materials. Of course, they come from many African countries, and you see how they use human exploitation to have the materials from which they build the technologies. You need mines, you need smelters and refiners, you need manufacturers, assemblers, distributors, and transportation. All this only to produce the tools. In the end, it has a whole cycle into our daily reality, and then it ends up to being recycled, and it even results in radioactive waste. So you see the whole ecosystem that is behind the production of such an Amazon system. It's an ecological disaster. Of course, it starts with humans, then you have the data, then you have the data centers where the data are being stored, and then it becomes even more invisible when you have AI systems that really treat our data and in the end also our collective behavior.
Thank you for following this virtual guided tour of the Stars Prize 2020 exhibition, Speculating on the Future Through Art and Science. You can now book your ticket on our website to visit the exhibition in real in BOZAR at the Center for Fine Arts until the 25th of October.